Good afternoon, everybody. It is 6:04. We are going to call the meeting to order. Welcome to the AB 617 South Sacramento Florida Air Quality Steering Committee meeting. And we are going to pass it off over with interpretation and instruction.
Afternoon. We have Spanish interpretation available. To access an interpreter, you have to join individual meeting, using either Zoom's desktop version or mobile app. Click the interpretation icon, it's available on the desktop. Look at the bottom of the Zoom window on the mobile app. Tap the screen to show controls, then tap more. It should have three dots. It's a menu. Choose your language channel and mute the original audio. Some tips for me: make sure you're using the Zoom app, not a browser, and make sure you're using the latest version of Zoom. Para acceder a un intérprete, únase a una reunión virtual usando la aplicación Zoom de escritorio o teléfono. Haga clic en el icono de interpretación que se ve como un planeta. Si va a estar en la computadora, revise la parte inferior de la ventana de Zoom. En el teléfono, toque la pantalla para ver los controles. Luego toque el menú, dice más y electrónicos. Elija su canal de idioma y silencie el audio original. El consejo sería: asegúrese de utilizar la aplicación Zoom, no un navegador. Asegúrese de utilizar la versión más reciente de Zoom. Gracias.
Thank you. Good evening, my name is Elizabeth Herrera and I work with Britta. I'll be your facilitator. She's very sad she couldn't be here, but she will be back next month. So now we're going to move through some of our logistics. These should look familiar to folks. Just a reminder that throughout the evening, we may make adjustments just to make sure everything is equitable and can be heard online. In person, if you have any questions, we're reminding steering committee members to use their name placard. And for the public to use raised hand. For those online, please use your virtual hand to ask a question. Again, the order of questions and comments will always start in the room for steering committee members online, the public in the room, and then public online. If those folks online are having any challenges, you can message Sarah online to the chat, or you can email them at the email there for assistance. Again, if you want to speak, you can either use the raise hand function as indicated there at the bottom of your screen, or if you're calling in, you can use dial 9 or *9 to raise your virtual hand, and then *6 will unmute you. And then again, when you speak, please state your name and affiliation. This is just a reminder, this looks familiar, that everyone here has agreed to the code of conduct, which basically says be kind and courteous and respectful of one another. So today, it's no big surprise we have a packed agenda. If anybody's surprised, we always have a packed agenda. We're gonna go into our meeting logistics. We have a couple of administrative items, including meeting summary, normal. We have a membership update, and then we have an action item to vote on some member applications. Some updates from the outreach subcommittee and from the district. And then the bulk of our time will be about the SERP strategy feasibility assessment. It's really important that we guard time for that, because it will set us up for next month, which is moving all our strategies along. And then new business, upcoming meetings, and public comments, and then adjourns. So we have a packed agenda. Then I'm going to pass to the co-lead for introductions and roll call.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So we will proceed with roll call. When I call your name, if you please could say aye or presence, whatever is your preference. Barry Boyd,
Here.
Arturo Arroyo,
Here.
Bishop Chris Baker,
Here.
M. Swan,
Here.
Jamala Green,
Here.
James Allison,
Here.
Lori Walker, Morgan Brown, present, Reina Moreno, Richard Lincoln, Ward Winchell, Roberto Rizzo,
Present.
Serena Rodriguez, Stephanie Williams, Tito,
Yes, ma'am, right here.
Vincent Valdez. Here. All right. And we'd also like to welcome the Air District for being present as well as CARB. We also have the City of Sacramento, we have the County of Sacramento, and we have Valley Vision present. So thank you all for being here today.
Thanks, everyone. And now we set aside some time for any community updates. Do any of the steering committee have any community events that they would like to share? And we're encouraging you to keep it to 30 minutes or 30 seconds. Thank you, I'm glad you're listening. Any steering committee have any?
I do.
All right,
Hello, everybody. I brought a save the date flyer for the El Panteon event that's gonna be at the Latino Center of Arts and Culture in Miller Park. And we talked about attending it last month. And so I just wanted to get the flyer and the save the date for the Air District, and then, we'll get contact information probably later this week. So it's, October 31st, November 1st, and November 2nd. It's at Miller Park on like the entrance to the boat ramp side. And it's right by the sheriff's department's, horses, stalls there.
thank you. Any other steering committee members have a community event?
Good afternoon, everybody. Morgan Brown, co-lead and executive director at Code Block. As we spoke about, but also just as a reminder, we do have the Salsa and Chili's Festival on October the 4th. We're still open to any resource vendors that are willing to be present. And of course, we would love to have as many community members present as possible. We'll have on-site chili making, on-site salsa making, there will be no chili. And we will also have a mini salsa dancing class as well as on-site planting, and then salsa herb garden kits to take home.
Thank you. Any other community events? Steering committee members online?
I had a question. Will any of those kids have cilantro in it?
You asked and I shall deliver.
Any steering committee members online? Community event? Public members, community events? Public members online, community events? All right, thank you. Now we will move to administrative items, and our first of which will be to approve the meeting summary. I'll pass to the co-lead.
Good evening again, Morgan Brown, co-lead. So we have all received the meeting minutes, not only via email, but for those who are present, it should be in front of you. So I would like to ask if anyone would like to pass a motion to approve the draft meeting minutes from August 25th of 2025. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Yes.
Okay, we have a yes from Bishop Chris Baker, and we have a second. Now, we can move to discussion, if anybody has any discussion items regarding approving the meeting minutes for August 25th. Any public comments regarding the meeting summary from August the 25th? Okay, so we can now move to a vote. Barry Boyd,
Aye.
Bishop Chris Baker.
Yeah.
Adam Swan,
Aye.
Jamala Green,
Aye.
James Allison,
Abstain?
Lori Walker. Aye. Morgan Brown, aye. Rena Moreno. Richard Lincoln. Ward Winchell. Roberto Rizzo,
Aye.
Serena Rodriguez. Stephanie Williams,
Aye.
Tito,
Aye.
Vincent Valdez.
Aye.
Okay, and the motion passes.
Thanks, Morgan. And now we'll get an update from the districts, Janice.
On membership update.
Yes.
All right, we have a few membership updates. So last month, you all recommended that Richard Falcone to approve the application, and we have. So Richard Falcone is now representing as a resident on the steering committee. He isn't here tonight, but he is now accepted. We were also able to follow up on a few incomplete applications, and so you'll see some of those reflected tonight in the membership vote. And then we received additional applications that were sent out, and we'll be discussing that on a further action item.
Thanks, Janice. We are doing good on time, you guys. I'm impressed, making up time.
If has a question.
Hello, I was working on the cable banner for outreach. And I went onto the Air District's website, and I don't know why it happens to me all the time, but I could not find the application process, link on the Air District's website. And what we're trying to do is create a QR code to put onto the cable banner and the standing banner, so anybody can scan it and get the application. So maybe with some help in that from the Air District, and we'll make that happen.
Yeah, we already have the QR code for the application, don't we? Yeah, we already have it, so we'll send it to you.
Thank you.
Morgan, did you have?
We're done with our update. Okay, thanks, Janice. We'll move into our action items. We have one action item tonight. We have 5 applications for new steering committee members, which is great because we have 6 empty seats on our board, our steering committee right now. So we have 5, and we have 15 minutes for this time slot. So we have to stick to our time frames. The district and the co-leads are proposing that we vote on this as a batch. Instead of voting one by one, that we would vote on this by all together in a batch of 5. And so we will first open it up to discussion for the group, and we can discuss among the steering committee, any questions they have, and then based on time, we can move into a vote. I know Morgan had one point of discussion.
Morgan Brown, I do want to recuse myself from this process and vote. one of the applicants, Malia Wallace, is actually my daughter, so she will be applying as an alternate. It's also as a, excuse me,
Applying as a resident.
as a resident,
And
excuse me,
you.
as you. So I am using myself from the voting process.
Thank you, Morgan.
And just for members of the public who are just joining us, we have the application that was available to the steering committee that was sent out last Friday. Or was it earlier? Applications. Yeah, right. Yeah, on Friday. So you all should have that. And we also have them available up on the paperwork that's available here tonight as well. If you need that.
Thanks, Janice. Serena? Quick question, a clarifying question on, Diogene Gunn. They say that they live here and they own a business. Are they representing themselves as like a CSC or as a business?
As a resident.
As a resident, cool. Thank you, Serena. Good clarification. Any other steering committee members within the room have points of discussion or questions? And we can come back to you. Any steering committee members online have questions or point of discussion about the applications? Is there a motion to vote on these 5 applications as a batch? I see a first with Serena. Is there a second? I see a second with Lori Walker. So now we've moved through the first motion, the second motion, and now we'll take public comment on the item. So we'll start in the room. Are there any of the public members that would like to comment on this motion to accept the 5 applications for new steering committee members? You're welcome to make a comment there.
Yeah. I believe we need to do a individual vote because if they are applying to the committee and it's not a consent item, since we don't have a consent, so I don't believe it can be grouped. So a quick vote for each one, just for clarity.
Thanks, Barry.
So we do have a motion on the table right now. That is a batch vote. It was seconded, so we need to finish the vote. And if it doesn't passes, then there could be a reconsideration. Okay.
Do we have any comments from public members online? All right, then we will close public comment for this action. Any further discussion from the steering committee? We've heard from Barry. All right, and we can move to a vote. Would you like to, should we have, I'll call the vote? Yeah. Okay, I'll call the vote since Morgan's recused herself. Thanks, Morgan. Barry Boyd, Bishop Chris Baker,
Yes.
M. Swan,
Abstain.
Jamala Green,
Yes.
James Allison,
Yes.
Lori Walker. Yes. Morgan Brown,
Abstain.
Raina Moreno, Richard Lincoln, Ward Winchell, Roberto Rizzo,
Yes.
Serena Rodriguez. Yes. Stephanie Williams,
Yes.
Tito,
Yes.
Vincent,
Yes.
We have 9 yeses, so the motion passes. We're accepting 5 new steering committee members. I think that's pretty exciting. Right? We're gonna almost have a full crew.
That would bring us to a total of 20.
Well, thanks all. We're gonna move on to our updates. I'm really proud of us. We're doing good on time today, you guys. So I'll pass it to Morgan, who will provide updates on the outreach subcommittee.
Good afternoon, everybody. Morgan Brown. So first is the status of purchasing outreach materials. I do know that one of our steering committee members, Vincent Valdez, is in the process of finishing up our banners. And for those who are here present, the t-shirts are here to take with you. So that way you have the t-shirts. If for any reason there are any discrepancies, please come to me and we will figure out what we need to do to rectify that. For the ARC fellow, so that was discussed at our outreach subcommittee meeting. So far, we had Janice who has offered to assist in the process as far as putting together a scope of tasks and duties for that fellow. The upcoming meeting for our meet and greet is September the 25th, with a estimated start date for October the 6th. So if anybody is interested in assisting with putting together that task list for the fellow that will be assigned specifically to the steering committee and to the tasks that we have for AB 617, please reach out via email and or phone. And I will now pass it on to Janice.
All right, during our outreach subcommittee meeting, we also talked about 3 additional items. One of them is the Institute for Local Governments, AB 617 convening. For the steering committee members, you have received an invitation through email to register for the event. So if you are interested, please register with them. The one thing that I would like to call out is that if you do need transportation to the event, which is in Livermore on a Saturday, basically all day, please reach out to us, the Air District, to let us know that you need transportation. So that deadline for that is this Friday, the 26th. Okay. The next big thing that we have, Valley Vision gave a presentation on their community air grant, on how they are going to be working with the steering committee in terms of helping us with the outreach with their grant. And we went through that presentation, and the first event that they're going to be helping us coordinate is going to be the AB 617 community event. Hopefully you all have seen the flyer that was developed. If not, you will, because I have that up there tonight. But it's going to be October 15th from 5:30 to 8 o'clock. And the main focus of this community event is to share out the air quality data information that we've collected here in South Sacramento, and also the SERP strategies that you all have developed as part of this process. So we're reaching broader into the community to educate folks.
Thanks, Janice. Oh, and I think we have one more update from Janice about CARB and a video.
Oh, yes. Thank you for reminding me, Elizabeth. We also had a update that CARB would like to put together a South Sac community video in talking about our process and uploading that to the state level. A lot of the other communities, there's a few communities that's already had like videos that were done for their community. And now we're going to be up pretty soon because they want to share our stories.
You're welcome. And then Morgan had one more update from the subcommittee.
So, just as far as our upcoming events that we have, I do want to note, so we have the All Neighborhood Chili Cook-Off, which will have chili on September the 27th from 11 a.m. to 2:30. We also have the Color of the Block Clean Air, the Salsa and Chili's Festival, which will have salsa and chili peppers. And then we have, and that's October the 4th, we have the Air We Share, the Community Conversation, which is October the 15th from 5:30 to 8. And then we also have the, I don't know if you know that, El Patio de Sacramento, which is October the 31st to November the 2nd. So we are looking for volunteers for all of these events, and definitely are encourage our steering committee members, if you have the time to commit it. As far as October the 15th, it is actually imperative that we have as many steering committee members as possible, because this is the opportunity for us to actually be able to truly convene and engage with our community, for them to not only understand why we're here, what we do, but for us to be able to pass on not only that passion, but information for them to be able to understand, and connect the same way that we want, it's the same way that we connect with our mission, but so that way they also have the love for clean air.
Thanks, Morgan. All right, we're doing great, folks. We're gonna move now into the meat of our meeting today, and we're gonna talk about the SERP strategy feasibility assessment. And we have dedicated about 25 minutes for presentation, and we've set aside quite a bit of time for discussion. So Janice, would you prefer folks hold questions? Or how would you like to handle that?
Yeah, I think it would be really good for you guys to hear the whole presentation first, because we know that there may be a lot of questions that might be already answered through some of the slides. Great, you. All right, thank you so much. So just a review and background. Again, this is not the first time you guys have seen this timeline, but we are making really good progress. So we are in Q3 in September, and you all had developed 28 strategies for the district to determine whether or not it's feasible, right? So we all did our homework this month, and we're gonna be talking about that tonight. Starting in October, it's gonna be our Q4, where we're gonna then share, then do an activity on what prioritization you all would like for the strategy. We all know that we have 5 years to implement the program, or the strategies, and we also know that there might be limited resource in implementing them all at once. Next slide. So just as a reminder, actually go back one slide. Our goal is for the CSC to approve the draft strategies in December, and that's gonna be December 8th. We're gonna approve the draft strategies, and that will go out for public comment. And then we'll have some time in the next year, so go to the next slide. So we'll release the draft document in January for public comment, and we'll open that in the month of February. And depending on the comments that come in, we will have an opportunity with our CSC to talk about what are the responses or resolutions to the comments that we received. We'll revise the plan based on the steering committee's feedback, and then we're gonna be bringing the final SERP for CSC approval in the March meeting. Then it goes through April, May, and June, where it goes back out to public comment again for our district board. And the goal is to be able to submit the SERP to the state by the end of June of next year. Okay. Again, not a new slide to you all. You guys have been working very hard on this. 28 strategies, 4 teams. And a lot of this, our steering committee members put in a lot of effort in having these conversations. So again, congratulations to you all for getting to this point. So tonight, we really want to focus on how did we determine whether or not a strategy was feasible? And we took a very systematic approach where we had to identify 5 criteria. First, for every single one of these strategies, we had to evaluate, number 1, identify a responsible party. Is there going to be somebody that's going to be able to implement this strategy? 2, do they have the authority to implement that strategy? 3, is there a funding stream, either that they're eligible for, that is either coming from the community air protection incentives or the implementation funds, or is there an existing program from our partners that that could also help with implementing the strategy? Then number 4, we calculated what an estimated total cost is going to be. We've listed out staffing costs, we've listed out supplies and services. And again, there's still a lot of details, I think, in some of our strategies that, you know, we took our best guess, our professional guess on this, and we, you know, we're providing that as part of the discussion. And then number 5 is, can this strategy start implementation within those 5 years? And so if all of those were a yes, then it either becomes yes, it's feasible, yes, with some adjustments, no, or maybe. And all of this, again, is pending on resources, right? So we're gonna hold the resources discussion for, until we provide the feasibility, yes or no's. Next slide. So what is the crux of the analysis? We've evaluated 28 measures. All of them are feasible with some adjustments. Some of them are implemented by the district. Yes, it's feasible because we have authority over them. Second, implementation by other partner agencies. Yes, the air district could coordinate that effort, but we don't have the authority to make any other agency implement the work. So there may be a maybe for that one. So it's yes, we can start the work and start that conversation as, you know, but we haven't gotten those commitments from the agencies, and we still have time to do that right during implementation phase. And all of that is, like I had mentioned over and over again, it is gonna be pending on resources. And that is gonna be part of our activity in October and how we're gonna be determining what strategies we may want to attack first. And then just, wait, no, go back. And then also, you all have received a packet, several packets of information. They're also available in the back table there on what was the summary of changes for each of the teams. They are strikeout underline. There, I would also like to mention that in the urban planning and mobile sources, in the safe and resilient streets, there is one bullet point that we left out on accident that we found out just about an hour ago. But we will update that back into the packet and we'll send that back out for you all. But what I wanted to share was that in the packets, we did not try to estimate, change the estimated timelines. And that is because that's based on the October activity on the prioritization of each of these strategies. Next slide. So what information did you all get? So you got the strikeout underline packets, so you'll know what was changed since the last full steering committee saw these strategies. Then in the next attachment, either you got it via email or they're in your packet tonight, is a table that goes through each of the criteria that we talked about. Is there a responsible party? Is there somebody who can implement it? Is there an eligibility of funding? What are some of the staffing costs? That's needed to implement the program? What are some hard supplies and services that we might need? Is it available for incentive dollars? And can we start implementing within the 5 years? So you can see a couple of things, examples of what we have. So the electrification of household appliances, yes, the district is able to coordinate. And we're working with SMUD to see if, they're going to be implementing the Energy Saver Bundle in our South Sacramento site. So then in the next, which is safe and resilient streets, we have the same, so the district's able to coordinate, but there may be some discussions we need to have with local jurisdictions to have them implement any particular part of the strategy. One of the other things that I wanted to also highlight was in the safe and resilient streets. The part that we left out that I said that we're gonna update for the red bullet. On the second page here, on the last line, safe and resilient streets, the incentive dollars is actually supposed to say yes. Again, we'll update that for you all, so you'll actually see that up there, that NA is supposed to be a yes. Okay. So all that was done for 28 strategies. All right. So before we start discussion, I think it's important that we talk about resources and program funding and to ground us in, some information. We have a lot of new steering committee members as well. We went through this information last year when we brought you our budget. We just want to do that again, so we can ground ourselves in that information. So first, AB 617 program funding, are put into like 3 buckets in general. One is our implementation, what we call community air protection implementation funds. Then we have our CAP incentives, and then the state also administers community air grants to community members, just like Valley Vision, who gotten some of that, a few in the past few years to implement projects like in the community that is community based and led. All of that funding is used to implement all of the elements in AB 617 that you see with the arrow. So it's, you got to develop the plan, you got to implement the plan. We also had community air monitoring. We also had to do some work in working with some facilities to retrofit their controls. We also have enhanced emission reporting that's required by 617. And also that money, and then I had mentioned the community air grants that goes to local community groups. So that's where all the funding is going. Next slide. Again, maybe a very familiar slide that we saw last year. The Sac Metro Air District AB 617 funding. We just want to emphasize that the state legislature only provides partial funding. And a lot of the work that we have done with you all have been supplemented by other district funding. So we look at it in 2 pots of money. One, incentive, what we call project funding. And you can see how much money we have received since fiscal year 17-18 and through fiscal year 24-25. Fiscal year 25-26 is still to be determined by the legislature. And incentive funding usually can be, SURF strategies and projects can be funded by CAP incentives. There are projects that also need to be approved by CARB. So it isn't just automatically that we can use it, it has to be approved by the state. And then implementation funding is funding for the district to implement AB 617. And you can see how much funding we've received through since 2017. And then all of the stuff on the third box is what the implementation funding is used for. So I highlighted SURF implementation because that's something that we're moving forward into the future.
right? And so the conversation that we've had with you all is that, we've always had limited funding to implement all the steering committee meetings, the facilitation, the air monitoring that we're doing, outreach, translation, all of those things are out of the implementation funding. Okay? Next slide. So, for those who don't know, AB 617 has, since the beginning, have had a annual appropriation. What does that mean? It means the legislature doesn't actually tell us how much money we have. Or they tell us how much money or if it's appropriated on a year-by-year basis, and that has always been the struggle. And so this year is no different. And this is what we know so far. There could be changes between when I made the slide to this moment. But what we know so far is for the statewide program, so this is all of California, all of the communities, there is a air district implementation of $45 million, but it was a 10% cut from what we've gotten before. So we used to get 50 million. Community air protection incentives, they appropriated 50 million, and that was an 80% reduction. And so this year, from my understanding, the legislature understands that this might be a gap year. So there was less funding this year in the state, and so they appropriated, less. We are expecting that to be different moving forward. From 26 and beyond, because 617 is tied to the cap and trade reauthorization, there was new language that is providing continuous appropriation. So remember what I said when I started. We were struggling with every year trying to figure out whether or not we were gonna, be appropriated. They have now into the bill, a continuous appropriation with a 5-year review. And I think that's but that also came with a 20% reduction in funding. So we used to get 300, and now it's 250 for the state. In addition to that, there was a lot of bill language that also added in new reporting requirements for the air district as well as the state. A minimum of 5 years air monitoring with an option to extend pending resources, again, on the state level. So we're not clear exactly yet how that is going to trickle down in the local level. And then some of these bills are still pending governor's signature, is that right? Where's the ball?
The trailer bills are passed.
They're all passed. Okay.
Most are, they're gonna be fine. Well, safe.
Okay. So as of this, some of the bills are still pending governor's signature. So they're written, but they still need to be signed. Okay. Next slide. Okay. So now we have a whole context of what the state looks like, what we used to have before. How do we put that into context of our SERP strategies and how we need to prioritize? 11 of those strategies are in the incentive project budget, bucket. 17 of the other ones are in the implementation funding. Okay, so when we look at the 2 different buckets, that's how we're going to be prioritizing them. Some of the incentive projects that are new may need a little bit of implementation funding to develop the project. So we've been implementing incentive projects, cap incentives for a while now, but if we're going to create something new, it's going to take an additional staff effort to develop the program. So that is also going to come out of the implementation to develop it. Once it's been developed, the following subsequent years can be absorbed in the
administrative incentive funding, percentages. Okay? Next slide. All right. So all that explanation, all of these buckets, incentive strategies, when we add them all up, what do they cost? These are all estimates, okay, over a 5-year period. Staffing cost is about 2.8. For incentives, supplies and services, $1 million, of a total of 3.8 million. For non-incentive based strategies, it's going to be 1.5. 1 million is staffing costs, supplies and services, $1 million, with a total of 2.5. And if we wanted to add them all up and, you know, over the 5-year period, it is estimated to be around 6.3. I do have a note on here that says, like, again, most incentive programs can be covered by the administrative cost that's already built in, but new incentive programs will require startup costs from the implementation funds. Okay, and that is all listed on the table that you guys have. For SERP implementation, I have emphasized that we have 5 years to implement these strategies. And so, you know, you can think about it and like, okay, what do we want to start with first? You know, once we're done with those, what else can we start? And then post 5 year is when we're continuing to get, you know, the benefits from the actions that we've initiated in the first 5 years. And again, I always have a star there. It's all contingent on funding. So this is a whole lot of information. And a lot of the conversations that we've heard from you all is, well, if we have a certain amount of money, what is the bang for a buck? Right? Like if we had $100,000, what is that going to get us? We are putting together a reference sheet that is going to give you a sense of how much benefit that you're going to get from $100,000 per $100,000. This is not ready tonight. We are finalizing them over the next week, but we're hoping to get them to you before the SERP subcommittee meeting, the next one. And I want to emphasize, you know, because we have a range of folks who really want to dig deep into the information, and some people may need less of that information. I would encourage you to take a look at that. And if you have questions, we're happy to discuss about them in the SERP subcommittee meeting. And that is going to help us in our October meeting make some decisions about priorities that we want to move forward with. Next slide. Something else that is also going to help, I think, the steering committee in the prioritization activity. What we've also heard from the steering committee in the past is we want to hear from the broader community on what they might be interested in, how they would like to prioritize. And that information would be really helpful for you all when you come back to the October meeting to make those decisions, right? To make some informed decisions. And so that is one of the reasons I think the outreach subcommittee, when they first talked about this October 15th event, to help the steering committee do that. So this is already live. The registration's already up. The flyer's already socialized. We encourage you guys to share this with your community members. We're going to be focused on air monitoring data. We're going to have it here at La Familia. In the room over there, we're going to be talking about air monitoring, 3 different phases, the results from those. And then in this room, we're going to be having a few tables to share the different strategies that you all came up with. And so we'll send this flyer out, if it hasn't already been, after the meeting. so that we can get, your community members to sign in and register for this event. I do want to make it clear that they don't have to register. We would appreciate it, so we know how many people are coming through, how much food to get, all of that. But walk-ins are welcome. And we have, the outreach subcommittee talked about, gift cards as well as, raffle prizes to encourage people to come. Next slide.
Janice.
Let me, I'll get you in 1 second. And then, so with all that, I just want to put out there that we are still available for virtual office hours. So as you guys are going through this information, you have questions, reach out to the AB 617 clerk, or call the clerk's phone to schedule a time so that we can bring the appropriate staff to, get you the information that you need. And I think that is the end of my slide. And we can start discussion, and I know that Vincent already has his.
Thanks, Janice.
Thank you. When we were talking about the October 15th, event, I may not be able to attend, but I'd like to participate or watch or, I don't know, is there going to be any live feed, any kind of virtual at all? Or will there be a recording that we can watch it later somewhere?
There will not be.
Okay. I'll bring a camera.
So we've heard a lot about, we have a lot of approved strategies, all of them, they're feasible. We've heard about funding, we've heard about timelines. And so Janice is opening up for discussion, and we'll start with the steering committee members in the room, then those online, and then public in the room and public online. Morgan. Oh, Serena, I'm sorry.
That's okay. I have two quick questions, one quick question. The quick question is, obviously we want people who live in our zone to come to this event, but are we also trying to encourage just larger Sacramento people who are just coming, or just like our literal neighbors? The first question. And the second question was about funding. How much of the funding, I know everything is subject to funding, but like, is there a certain amount of funding that is like guaranteed to any of our programs? Because that might help us prioritize in October. Like, I mean, I'm just coming from public health, our funding is getting cut left and right. So like, I would rather prioritize things I know maybe have a better shot of not getting their funding cut, or whatever funding streams don't get cut. Is there a way to, yeah, I think that's a much larger question.
So who's being invited to the October 15th?
It is open, for anybody to come. But obviously, because, you know, some of the activities are geared towards what are the strategies that you would like to see in your community? We would like to see South Sacramento community, members be the ones, you know, also showing up.
Funding, about prioritizing funding being cut, how do we prioritize?
Sarah, can we go to the slide of historic funding? So, for incentive projects, we do have, and I think Paul, maybe it's best that you answer the incentives and I'll answer the implementation. We did get 1.4 that, you know, could be used as part of the CERF implementation. But also remember, not all of the 1.4 is going to be just the CERF strategies, right? Because it's all of the things that is on the right-hand side.
So in general, the legislature usually doesn't stay with appropriation, and the CARB and others do breakdowns. 5% is kind of a good rule of thumb. Sometimes it may be more, it may be less. There's other factors that go into it. So right now, next year it's going to be really lean. The year after that will be more, but I think we're probably gonna be targeting like 2 or 3 million a year incentive. And there may be windfalls, I mean, one year we got $14 million, so. Because we are moving to a continuous appropriation, it's probably going to be, we have more stability, but there's going to be less of it, so we can't plan on that. As far as implementation, that's completely up to you guys. There are some that like a tree you know, planted now, you get an extra 5 years of growth, and if you plant it in 5 years. Is something, or it could be, there's a really dangerous intersection, I want to address that now. So definitely be thinking about, you know, we are committing to work on this for 5 years. And we're gonna try to get through everything, but the timing is absolutely gonna be up to this committee.
Serene, that answers your questions. Good questions, Morgan.
Okay, so I was just kind of reviewing. Trying to look at the implementation funding. So I guess my question is, how was the funding cost calculated in the sense like, an example, increased tree canopy. So we have increase in tree canopy, 250K for staffing cost. The supplies would increase the tree canopy being at 10K. So I guess like, when we look at those particular factors, especially knowing that, or I guess I know part of the conversation pieces that have been brought up. Knowing that, you know, trying to work with local organizations, things like that to, I guess, get these things in the ground. As well as, you know, systems to maintain, so there are organizations that have technically already do this. I guess, how is that number retrofitted, so to speak?
No, excellent question. So one thing I'd like to do is actually go to the third one, which is commercial vehicle replacement. It's on the same sheet as increase tree canopy. And you'll notice that it's not using any implementation funding.
Correct.
And that's because it's a program that we already have. So the state gives us a portion of the incentive money to run it. And when we run programs, we're not giving people money, we're buying emission reduction credits. And there's a lot of reporting that goes into it. You're signing a contract for 3 to 5 years. We send inspectors out. And so all of that has to be handled. We're currently, you know, we were doing that for 20 years. So it's all set up. Urban greening is a new program. So we have to update our systems to like, for a while we were giving trees like their own implementation numbers and other things, right? It's, we have to find a way to report it to CARB that it happened, the emission reductions is happening, the tree was planted as a result of the program. It's not somebody already had trees, they're trying to get us money from us. And so think of it as sort of a startup cost. Sometimes that's also a product development piece. So for example, on infrastructure, we put in some staffing costs there. And if we were to just run request for proposals and said, hey, anybody who wants to put in infrastructure, just submit stuff and run it through a regular process, we could probably cover that with the incentive administrative costs. But if you said, or the community said, hey, we really want fast chargers in this area, nobody's raising their hand, go out and find a piece of land, find somebody who's willing to do it, rights to grants, that costs money, staff resources and other pieces. So we can always dial back product development, but it means that you have to, if the community, if you feel there's enough capacity in the community to make it happen without having staff go out and drum up business, then we can bring those numbers down. And so this is just sort of a ballpark. We are helping to establish these things. Some of it is hard costs, like we have to pay our contractor to upgrade our IT systems to be able to track this new thing, because trees don't have vehicle identification numbers, as an example. So that's for a deeper conversation, but these are, for lack of a better word, starting points to give you sort of a sense of scale of new versus old and how deep into the community do you want us to reach as staff to make these things happen.
Okay, so that was one, I mean, in theory, I understand. I guess because. In theory, I understand, I guess, because in, I guess, action wise, because I also do tree planting, like, I guess, like I said, when I look at what the cost of like. It would just look a little different, as far as staffing versus, supply. And then something else I had a question on, what, yeah.
Hold on,
sorry.
So I want to address a point that you just made, is in terms of like staff and supplies, right? So the trees for incentives would actually be whatever whatever that actually gets submitted by whatever entity is going to be planting the trees. So for example, if Joe's tree planting had said, submitted a proposal and said, we're gonna plant, 100 trees and it's gonna cost this much. That would come straight from the project incentive dollars. This $10,000 here for supplies and services is potentially for what Paul said, to upgrade our system to be able to manage the data. That we gave out this amount of money, this is the amount of trees that came out of there, so that we have to keep that tracking. There are very strict reporting requirements that the state have for any incentive dollars that go out.
Okay, so just another question on that. So I know you said that like, as far as like data collection, so, so as far as I know, we have, under implementation funds, like I see, like the data analysis, so I'm assuming any that like, that would also include like software, so to speak, tracking software. So I know like there's tree tracking software, like, and I'll give you an example, like Arbor Day Foundation. They calculate for each tree that's planted, that's about $80 per tree for actual digital tracking, the satellite, as well as like follow-ups at households. So that's like when you try to do trees through Arbor Day Foundation, it's calculated at $80 a tree. So and that's again based on the software cost. So if we were looking at, again, hypothetically, AJ was able to have like that same type of system, would that software cost fall under supply or would it fall under static cost?
Supplies.
So that in theory, I guess, if you, again, like I said, this is just, me mathing, which I'm not great at it. But like if I were to take 10,000 and divided by 80, again, that would be, but not even that, because we're saying like we also would need funding for some other stuff. That would just be a minimum amount of trees. So again, that's just kind of how in my brain, just because again, I looked at software, but okay, that doesn't give. I digress from that one because I had one other question. So I was looking at the residential. As the residential, commercial lawn and garden, as well as the clean air products. I guess as far as, like, I guess again, once again, kind of looking at implementation versus incentives, I guess trying to figure out how that was determined, again, as far as cost, but like, so with the clean air products. Assumption, just from looking at it, my assumption would be that like clean air products would be something that would fall more so under, or be like an incentive thing for community, a resident, so. I guess what differentiates that from not having incentive dollars as opposed to the residential lawn and garden?
So my understanding is clean air products is to educate the community to use products that are healthier indoors. And so it might be going to craft fairs or other places and giving people free samples of green products to use. And then maybe they purchase it. So it's not the subsidy of a product to an individual. It's more of an educational piece. And then commercial and residential lawn and garden is helping people buy lawnmowers. So the $20,000 is to upgrade our Flux database system to be able to handle residential lawn and garden. And then we need to then have contracts with all of the vendors who sell lawnmowers. So that they could then take work the voucher program and everything else. And then we have to have a deal with CARB and then have the reporting requirements associated therein and then run the program. So the lawn and garden is an incentive program because we're going to give you money to buy an electric lawnmower. Whereas clean air products is, it would be nice if you yourself purchased a product such as this, and here's a small sample for you to try.
Okay, so specifically, one is more education and outreach, I guess. And the other one is more actual physical, tangible items. Okay.
Thanks for that.
Just for my edification, if you would just slow walk me just one more time, Paul. I'll make it the easy one. The tree canopy. The $10,000 for supplies and services, again, software tracking. But the funding from our end to the Sacramento Tree Canopy, Sacramento Tree Foundation, the $250,000 in addition to the staff salary, that is also the monies where the incentive monies that are going to pay for the actual trees and supplies needed to that. That's in that budget of $250,000. Do I have that correct?
No, so in next month, we're gonna be having an activity that is going to identify how much money we wanna put in a tree canopy. Right, so we haven't, the steering committee itself hasn't determined that. What we're saying is it's eligible for that fee. This $250,000 from the implementation is a startup cost. Because this is a newer program that the Air District has to think through all of the logistics. In contracting, in developing a plan for potentially CARB to approve. So all of that administrative stuff needs to be done first. And that's what it's going to, and that's an estimate of what that might be.
Gotcha, thank you. So the follow-up question is, I can understand for the ZIP and infrastructure, that startup fee, which is the planning and design review, yada, yada, the architects, where it's going to go, got the name of the words, checking the ground that it's okay, where you're going to build real true hard costs in a part of the process that cannot be weighted. It all has to be done step by step. So I understand that kind of strategy. There is a greater dollar amount. But coming back to where this tree is, drop it off in your lawn, say, here you go, plant it. It's just $150,000, $65,000 less than something that has to go through planning and design, votes, commission, city council, yada, yada, yada. That's where I'm throwing off, as Morgan was as well, not understanding startup, but it's not a startup, it's the Sacramento Tree Foundation that operates on a $1 to $5 million operating budget annually. They aren't short on funds. That's where I'm like, what? So I'll let you answer on that thing.
So what we're trying to do is I was instructed to try to put all of the potential costs into this. And right now, a lot of the emission reductions that we do is you take an engine, you crush the engine, and somebody buys a cleaner engine, and then you work out the difference. And now we're going to plant a tree, and we have to make sure that the tree grows, and the tree is watered, and that all of those things are happening. And our systems currently just aren't really set up for that, and our contracts aren't set up for that, and our penalties aren't set up for that. 250 is probably a bit much. We could probably get it down by cribbing up with other people. I will say that I made a mistake on this one, and I appreciate the steering committee for calling me out on it. But there is a startup cost for all the programs to make sure that we can have all the reporting requirements handled by CARB. And in general, it is not a nominal amount of staff time to write up a brand new contract and get it through legal, and then to get it through CARB, and then to update our tracking systems to be able to handle something that doesn't have a serial number, and then have staff and then come up with a protocol for what happens when all of these things happen or don't happen. So that's sort of where I'm coming from as trying to work out the feasibility of these pieces.
Let me add to what Paul has to say.
what the good news is that we're only going to be charging what the actual costs are when we do these projects. I think what the district is doing is that we're anticipating, because this is something new to us, to be able to say, this is the amount of hours that we think is gonna cost for us to draft up this plan, to get CARB to approve, to think about all the enforcement mechanisms, and it takes people to do that. And so I think the good news is we're only gonna be charging what it takes. At this point, it is our estimate of what it is, and it can be more and it can be less. What I will also say from other communities, that I've heard from other communities across the state, some strategies take a heck of a lot more than what they anticipated from the get-go. And so I will set some expectations with the steering committee that even though we, have an estimate of, let's just say our infrastructure, it may be a lot harder than we think it will be. I mean, a lot more conversations. Or you guys could do a lot of the groundwork and convince a lot of your community members to accept and agree, and it may cost a lot less.
Just the last follow-up with the, I don't want to guess the year, but if AQMD has been around 20, 30 years.
A lot of years.
Okay, so from that, you guys have a base number of what every aspect that AQMD has done throughout the years. This is new as far as the steering committee, but whatever implementation that the district has done throughout the community, planting trees, electric chargers weren't around, but something equivalent. So there is a established number of what it costs for these different projects the last 30-something years that you guys have done. Or are you saying that there isn't an established base number, or nobody has the budget on file somewhere to take a look at? This is what it cost us. Let's now adjust for inflation, plus minus, yada, yada. So we're coming to a very narrow dollar amount, very close to what the actuality would be versus the soup going high and then do a reduction possible.
So for some of the programs, we have those dialed in really well. The ones that we've listed as for new programs, like the tree ones, like the e-bike voucher, like the no scrap or Clean Cars for All, those are all new to us. So we haven't developed that program yet. We have to think about what that looks like. And part of the process that I asked the team to do was to estimate, okay, if we have to create a plan, how many hours is this going to take? And in general, you can see here that any new program is gonna take about a person, staff time, or, collectively, to be able to develop these new things that we want to implement into the community. And these are new because you guys came up with these ideas, right? And we're being responsive to that.
Appreciate that. So part, the district has never planted trees over the 30-something years you guys have been on.
Not as an incentive.
Have you guys planned so the budget that has been created?
No, we have not.
What?
So, good news is that now we're incorporating this as a strategy. And this potentially could be available for more communities as well.
So I would like to go online and see if there's any steering committee members that have questions or comments, and then we'll come back for the second round in here. Are there any steering? And Swan, would you like to come off mute and ask your question?
Yes, thank you. I think mine is more of like a narrow question, I guess, with the reference sheet that you're building. I don't know what the plans are, so you might have already considered this, but is it possible to, and I don't know how much, like worker funding, like if that's going to put into it, but to also have a version of the reference sheet where each one of the sort of like different little sections out that you make is in like a note card form. And the reason why I'm asking for that is that, like if we could get like 2 or 3 sets of these note cards, it might be really easy for us with outreach to sort of like go to people and say, okay, it's like, each one of these note cards is $100,000 and you can see what you would get. Mix and match these, to go up to a certain dollar amount to see what you would like. And that might help with sort of like getting community outreach. Because I kind of just imagine if we're tabling and we have just two reference sheets and we're saying, okay, yeah, like, pick and match which ones you like. It might get a little bit confusing, a little bit cumbersome.
So
Did,
it
did
sounds
what I
like
say
it's-
make sense? By the way, I'm sorry. I know I said it audibly, but
What I'm hearing, Em, is a tool to help communicate to the public about what could be purchased with $100,000 within these strategies.
yes, perfect. Thank you.
Thanks, it's a great suggestion. Were there any other steering committee members online that had a question or comment? I'll give you a second to find the raised hand, because I know it can take a minute. All right, if you do raise your hand, then we will come back to you, and we're gonna come back to the room. I think Vincent had another question.
Okay, I was using my fingers and toes to count up the staffing costs for all these, strategies, and I came up with $4,395,000. So my first question, is this a 5-year? Or this is for 1 year? So this is- Thank you. That answers a few of the questions we had over here on that. And then also, I know there are a lot of strategies that we all talked about, and some of them came from the community, and some of them came through brainstorming. And I just feel like there's too many strategies on here. So my question is, are we really anticipating passing 28 search strategies in our first round, first year? Or will we be filtering some of these out? And when I mean some of these out, so I was naive when I got on this committee 6 years ago, and we thought this money was going to be going to the community to do community air monitoring and to come up with strategies and implement these strategies. And when I look at the authority to implement, I don't see very many community organizations on here at all. We may be checked as external parties at some of these, but most of these are CARB, the Air District, RT, local jurisdictions. And so most of this money for staffing and stuff looks like it's going to government entities. And so when I felt that it was going to be funded to the community for us to bring up the community, workforce development, all these different things that I thought this legislation was going to bring to the community, I'm not seeing it in some of these strategies. Some of these are just, we're gonna help out, and I'm just gonna say it, we're gonna help out somebody else, another agency with $0.3 million for to help us on a strategy. And so that would be the and I'll find it, and I don't wanna, call out everybody here, but the Air District is gonna do $500,000 for fireplace electrification. And so and I didn't bring it, and I'm sorry I didn't, but I was up in Placerville, and their air quality management district is doing a fireplace replacement, lawnmower replacement. They're doing 4 different things on the back of what I like to read is the gold panner there, and it's kind of like the Thrifty magazine that you get at the gas station, and they're soliciting it right there on the back. But so there are other places that are doing what we're talking about doing, but there's just a lot of money here on some of these projects, like the land use warehouse zoning. And that's $250,000, or $0.3 million, and I knew I was gonna find it. Another one is safe and resilient streets, $300,000, and those are going to local jurisdictions. And so that's not money going to organizations or the community, it doesn't seem like, but that's just staffing costs. And so I'm just curious if we're gonna be able to eliminate some of these strategies, and I feel like we have way too many for our first round.
So,
I'm overwhelmed.
yeah, it's a lot of information, Vincent. I was overwhelmed. we were putting all this together. All of these strategies have 5 years to implement. So it isn't that we're gonna, come out the gate and do all 28 strategies at once. We can't do that feasibly. You guys have seen the staffing that it takes to get these projects off the ground. So part of our prioritization for us to discuss is, okay, thanks for getting us this information, thanks for ideas. If you guys feel that you don't wanna implement any of these, we don't have to. Okay? How we're gonna be structuring this is, I'm thinking it's like 3 buckets. These are the ones that we really wanna do now. We feel very passionate about it, we think they're feasible, we think they're within the resources that we have. As we get more money, we can work on these other next tier of strategies. And at any point, if you're like, we don't really know if, we wanna spend, $500,000 on fire hoses, we don't have to. We're just providing the information of how much these things cost that you guys have asked about.
It feels like a good setup almost for next month, when we start prioritizing and saying what comes next.
Thank you.
We're gonna do, respond to the question about, local governments, like where the staffing money is
Yes.
going.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me. So the second part of your question, Vincent, was about the staffing costs that would be going to a different local jurisdiction. Actually, that is not the case. The staffing costs it would be for our air district, that we would be allocating a person to help implement some of these guidelines that you all have asked for. Working with the jurisdictions to make sure that they're in there. Working with the steering committee to make sure that these are the ideas that you want into their programs. So again, it takes a lot of people power to get a lot of these guidances through.
Just clear, that's speaking. All monies.
Hold on, Carrie, we had a
Oh,
question
sorry.
over here, and we'll come back to you, and I see a hand up here.
Thanks.
Thank you for the time. I think I just wanted to say officially, like for the record, that like when I first came on here, I said that for myself in my practice with collaboration and stuff like that, that there's always a period of dreaming and a period of putting all the priorities down on the list, and then we reach the funnel, right, of funding and feasibility, and then we got to get creative in figuring out how do we get everything as much as we can, right, through that funnel. And I think when reading through a lot of this stuff, if we're creative, we can see that there's a lot of overlap and that we like a lot of the same stuff. And so it's just figuring out what parts of each strategy are the core parts that are providing benefit, and then also where are we overlapping with other strategies, right? And like what roles can we put in to make sure that we're getting the best out of everything that we think that people need. So I just wanted to reiterate officially for the record that it is overwhelming, and it's always going to be overwhelming because we're doing good work. But there's also like a light at the end of the tunnel, right? We can figure out a way if we're creative and hopeful and resilient.
Thanks, Sam. Then we have Serena. I have a super quick question. It's on the commercial sources page, the incentives for small businesses landscaping. I see that there is an existing program, the lawn and garden program. Is that why there's no staffing costs associated with that? Okay, cool. Yeah, you guys nodded yes. That's for the Zoom. And also, I just want to shout out Stephanie. I don't know, I saw you like unmute earlier and then you muted. Did you have something to say that you wanted to say from earlier? I'll give my time to you. Stephanie, I'm sorry, did I miss you? Well, we'd love to hear from you, Stephanie. If you have anything, raise your hand or come up here. Otherwise, we're gonna take one more steering committee or two more steering committee members in the room.
Just, make sure I heard you right, where Vince's question was in regards to monies going to the, local municipalities. That's just the authority to, that we contend with, but I believe you said all monies, all staffing monies, strictly the districts, AQMD, one to AQMD, and not outside of AQMD. Or did I mishear you?
Trying to remember.
So, yeah, right now, this is sort of. I don't wanna say a worst case scenario, but given CARB's new reporting requirements. And fraud and other things, we're really trying to be as inclusive as possible. Some of these staffing costs could probably be turned into contractor costs based on lots of legal stuff we won't get into. And so I think Ed nailed it, that to implement every piece of every measure, at a level that I think CARB would accept is very expensive. There might be aspects that we can winnow away, and there might be aspects that we can contract out. And so really looking for that, if that's a priority of the community, we can absolutely amend the measures and that'll change these numbers. And that's why the asterisk including community direction and what CARB accepts and the level of rigor we want to have. So way back in the day, we did used to run a fire police program and our overhead was about 50% because we'd have to send an inspector out to make sure that there was no fireplace before or that there was a fireplace and that there was a new insert there afterwards, and that level of audit was very expensive to send people out. There are ways now to do it cheaper, probably, so. There's sort of the level that everybody's comfortable with, because we absolutely want the majority of the money to go into programming, and I think we all agree on that.
So the contract cost is. Just clear, just for me, so the contract costs, there could be contract costs with a municipality, a municipality or, you know, say municipality, but a entity. Trying to find that word, an entity that would benefit from the funding that's listed here as staff.
Yeah, like United Latinos or Tree Foundation, I think, or Burke. Burke is another, that maybe you've got to continue.
Well, gotcha, you answered the question. Okay. So contract cost versus the word fee.
We're good.
Okay, two things, one. And again, I hate to talk about the trees again, but you know, I live for the trees. So yeah, I would love, I guess at some point we relook at that one, because I did the math. With the, again, taking into account for systems that are already set up through, Arbor Day Foundation. And again, I know some new, which is, so you guys know the math, because my math doesn't math without a calculator. That's 125 trees if we were using the same type of tracking satellite system, that they use for managing and tracking each tree. So that means that with $10,000, if that was just going straight towards tree purchase and tracking, $8 per tree, then that also means we're buying trees at probably under $30, which means pretty much seedlings, or maybe 1-year trees, which would take about 4 to 5 years just for ensuring that the tree survives. So this is just based on experience. So that's just information. And then well, I kind of wanted to piggyback on what something that Em said and something that Ben said. So absolutely, you know, it'd be definitely comforting to see some of these external partners, and thank you guys for clarifying that, like, external partners doesn't necessarily mean just the municipalities and government organizations. These are just people that can be contracted out. And to Em's point, like one thing that I saw was promote air quality education in schools. And then I saw. It was 2 different education pieces. Reduce idling at school and sensitive receptors. So I guess like in theory, kind of like you were saying, we're still getting to the same endpoint, maybe different routes. So looking at how maybe some of these can be combined, so that way funding is stretched more efficiently.
Yeah, I think the really great thing about this particular program is that we're working with a lot of partners to make these things happen. And as you guys all know in the community, how many conversations are we having to get to the point of agreement, commitment, reporting? And, I completely, we can definitely take a look at the increased tree canopy, but I do want to emphasize that we are building a new incentive program to report to CAR. So it isn't necessarily just counting the number of trees, how long have they matured, but it is building it into our internal system so that we can financially track this information, because we are talking about a lot of money and public money and accountability of like where it's going to and who it's going to and how we're going to track it. So while I appreciate different programs that are able to track trees, there is internal databases that we need to update to accommodate that program. So just a little bit separate, appreciate the experience that you have. But I do want to call out that there's a financial aspect that our district has to make sure that we're reporting to the state appropriate.
Thanks, Janice. And I know I'm not part of the steering committee, but that's interesting because it's brought more clarity for me, and I'm wondering if some folks have had the same question. We're doing a program, let's plant some trees. It feels, I see that it feels small, but I've also come from a state agency, and implementing any program takes so many things that they were talking about to make it successful, to make it lasting. So it's beginning to make more sense to me with your explanation. Thank you. You know.
Oh, man, that was all gonna happen, Jesus. Thank you, Janice. Great sandwiches, appreciate you taking the time. I was hoping for some tacos and burritos today. All right, real quick, just making a little, just my observation. You know, I know it's took a lot of you guys time to prepare this, and when we look at the numbers, it's a bit intimidating. And it's easy to start analyzing, right, when you're talking about labor costs in comparison to the services. It just disproportionately doesn't seem to make sense somewhat. And I think the least we want to do is minimize the contributions of the staff and the cost of labor and all that. And I think Vincent and I kind of wanted wishfully thinking that maybe the contribution from the steering community is also a part of that staffing cost, intangibly speaking. Right, but I think partly because we're talking about 5-year projections, and there are times, part you mentioned 1 year was 14 million, and the next year was down to like 3 or 4, and this 1 year we didn't get anything at all. So it's hard to say 5 years we're gonna get this done, but we don't know what the budget's gonna be the next couple of years, right? But given that it's 5 years, and you see these numbers, much is given, much is expected of us too. If we say this is to serve the community, how do we sell this product or sell this service to say, this is for the community, yet the services and the incentives are very minimal, right? So 2 things. One, a lot of the benefit will come afterward. I'm hoping that, and it's easy to say, you guys don't like it, don't do it. No, we've done too much to get to this level. We ain't going back, right? And so there might be some duplicates, some overstep in terms of resources, and we'll be having more efficient. But that gotta be an accountable or a tracking system, maybe 6 months, a year, within that 5-year window, right? 6 months gone, but maybe spending all the money already. What the hell are we doing over here, right? Or maybe we just spend $1 and we got some money left over. So that's on us to keep asking the question, be a part of the team, part of the solutions. But I think that it's kind of a service that just to have a small meeting like this and talk about all these numbers because it's overwhelming. And sometimes you feel like one little bucket spread out small little pieces and everybody's trying to fight for the crumbs, right? Thank you.
Thanks, Tito.
One of the things that I've heard over the years from the steering committee, is that you wanted transparency. Right, and part of transparency is to be able to share with you all these numbers that you all have asked for. So we understand that it's intimidating. Like I said, we're overwhelmed by this. But there is a plan that we're putting in place that can get to these things as funding is available. We can write the plan in a way where, okay, if we only have, $1 million, which ones are we gonna, out of these plans, are we gonna do first? Next year, when we know that we're gonna get more, maybe the legislature decides this is a super priority, and we're gonna give you $1 trillion. All right, let's move. So I think there is a lot of unknown, but there is still some, but we know that we're, with the update that I gave with the legislature, that they have continuous funding. Right, they've created a bill that we're gonna be committing to this for the foreseeable future. So there's gonna be some funding that is gonna come out of this, and if it doesn't, we can go to CARB and ask for it. I'm looking at CARB. And so I want us to think about it in a way where it's just like, if we have this money, this is what we wanna work on first. If we get more money, let's work on this bucket. So that you don't have to, throw out the things that you all have thought really deeply about. So those are options. I'm just throwing out the different options that we can take.
Thanks, Janice. I see one more hand online, and then maybe we'll come into the public room and see if there's anyone that has a question. And
Again, thank you again for the chance to speak. I want to kind of add to the same bucket that Janice and Tito were saying, but adding my own little thing is that like this stuff is hard. But I think some of the things that I'm hearing that I just want to make sure that like we're all hearing is that we don't have to immediately assume that just because we don't have money, like Janice was saying right now, that like we won't have it in the future. And I think what I'm also hearing is what needs to be done, right, to get the things that we want. And I think there's, and I feel this sometimes as well with life, that like there's this idea that we can come to the steering committee and kind of just share what we need, what we want, and that'll kind of happen. But also I think what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing looking at these numbers on my computer is that if we really, really want this stuff, we're really gonna have to work on outreach, bouncing off of what Tito was saying. We're gonna have to be able to sell this. And also like we're gonna be able to really get into electoralism. We're gonna have to convince the legislature that this is important. And I've researched a lot of your organizations, a lot of people here, and you guys are all powerhouses of the community. And so, it's like I think it's very clear that like what we need to do is tell people that what we've created here is important and get people organized enough so that there's enough noise around this so that it becomes a priority. And we don't always have to think about this like, even though this is us, right? This is always us, but like we don't always have to think about it like, oh, we don't have it, right? Because as Vincent was saying, other communities have it, and we can be other communities. I think we just need to be loud, and we need to be really organized. So,
thanks, Sam. I wanted to come in the room and see if there are any public members that had any questions or comments about the presentation.
Yes, hi everyone, my name is Zaira and I'm with United Latinos. The two items I have, one is a comment and one is a question. The first one is related to the three buckets, Janice, that you were alluding to in approaching some of these strategies and kind of deciding, what's of these strategies do we want to complete first, second, third? But also thinking about, and this is an invitation for everyone to think about maybe the project timeline of some of these projects or strategies. What could be completed within the 5 years and using that as a possible approach to tackling these strategies. And the other item is a question on this cost estimate page of the very last one, the SAWA curriculum for education. Is that something, is that a curriculum from the Air District or is this a SAWA curriculum?
So this is building building off of the curriculum that the Air District has worked with this. So let me back up. The city of Sacramento had provided a grant to the air district. So there was three phases. One was the monitoring, one was, curriculum development, and the other was deploying, portable air sensors in the community. So we developed a curriculum in partnership with Saba, a high school curriculum to implement at their schools. So now that they have built this foundation, right, we can go and maybe talk to school districts. We could work with after-school programs. Could they take some of this information that's already built? I know Valley Vision had already built some curriculum, United Latinos had worked with us on that. How do we take those things and leverage it into this program? All of that, though, takes time, coordination, discussion, right? And so, again, a lot of the staffing costs that we're talking about is working with those entities to be able to build this program.
Yeah, that's exactly, what I was alluding to. There are lots of entities out there in the community that have air education curriculums. My name is Sarah Kolaric. I work for the city of Sacramento. I had more of a comment and clarifying question. Folks have brought up concerns about the implementation funding and just spending a lot of time on staff costs to set up programs, because it does take a lot of staff time to set that up. Could this steering committee choose to just focus on creating maybe one new program and directing lots of incentive funding through that one new program, so that you have a small amount of initial staff time costs compared to the amount of incentive funding that could go through that? Am I understanding that correctly? I think that might also go back to the prioritization and how the plan, once adopted, actually gets implemented. I'm curious a little bit on that implementation. Once it's adopted, how do you prioritize what to implement? Is it just working down a list, or?
The first question was,
Where we focus the money?
Okay, sorry. The first question was, can we focus the money, right? Like build one new program and put a whole bunch of all of your money in there? Yes, you can. So you can then, you don't have to build all of the programs at once. You don't have to do all of the programs. You can pick one and we can allocate a large funding to that. So yes. The second question was about how does implementation work?
So you are going to be prioritizing the strategies at the next meeting. From there, will you have a plan that simply divides the strategies into high, medium, and low priority? Which is kind of what it sounds like. And then when the rubber meets the road, when you get the money, how do you choose from the high strategies, high priority strategies?
Yeah. So. Other thing, we're gonna come back depending on how it's prioritized. So let's just take bucket one as like urgent, we wanna do this now. We're gonna know, we add it all up, how much it's gonna cost. Historically, we have gotten a certain amount of money to do all of these things, and we know what's left to implement the strategies. We can come back, and talk about, like if it's, for example, if the steering committee picks 5 high priorities, and that totals to, $2 million, but we only have, let's say, 800. We're gonna know from those strategies, like what would fit that 800. And not only do we have to consider the cost, but we also have to consider the district's ability to implement these in a way with our staffing resources. So for example, if we say, I want these 5 projects in this one particular program, but we don't have staff in this division to do all of this work, we may have to come back and have a conversation with the steering committee and say, we can do 2 of these here, 1 of them here. This is what would be doable with that amount of money and time and the resources that we have to implement it.
Thanks, Janice. We have about 2 minutes before we need to move on. I want to see if there were any other public members in the room that had questions or comments. Any public members online that have questions or comments about the presentation? All right. Hearing none, I want to say thank you, Janice, for your presentation and Paul for the work you guys have done. Provided a lot of good information. So let's move on to new business and upcoming meetings. And I feel like our first announcement is really appropriate because where can steering committee members go to get more information about these strategies?
So, yeah, before we end on that, if there are more questions, remember virtual office hours is still standing. Contact the clerk, let us know what questions you have. We're gonna bring the right staff and we'll do an appointment. The upcoming meetings, upcoming steering committee meetings in October and November, we're gonna be talking about prioritization, which means that we're gonna have activities here, hands-on activities for you all to work on. And so the next 2 meetings is going to be an in-person only meeting. So there will be no remote option. And then in December, is where we're gonna, we're anticipating it to be, as normal. But all 3 of these meetings are gonna be hosted here at La Familia.
And what I was kind of alluding to, Janice, and I think I missed the slide, is that we have SERB subcommittee in 2 weeks. If you have questions or want to dig deeper into these, you can attend that. There are office hours that the staff would be glad to schedule with you, so you can explore these further.
Yeah, I do want to put a plug in for the next SERB subcommittee meeting. I do think, I would encourage you all to attend, because what we want to do is share with you the resource sheet, walk you through any questions that you might have, walk you through what the activity might look like. And so all of that is to prepare you all for the October meeting, so you have enough information to make those decisions.
Did I miss why are in-person only in October, November?
The question was, why is it in person only for our next 2 meetings?
Right, it's because we're gonna be doing hands-on activities. So very similar to what we did back in February, we had in-person only. That's what we have as activities to be able to make this decision.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other new business or upcoming meeting topics? Any new, Barry.
Just a quick question. I mean, it's not gonna happen in the next month or 2, but since this facility is up for sale, has the district started looking at the other areas for a permanent, more like how this was a more permanent meeting place?
We haven't yet, but we're definitely open to, different places. Thank you for bringing that up to our attention.
Any other new business? All right. Let's move to public comment. You guys wait so patiently, and then we give you 5 minutes at the end. Do we have any public comments in the room? And those online will come to you in a minute.
The if the subcommittee is the same as the outreach committee now, and when are those posted on any of the flyers that were handed out today? No, is that something different? very different.
So our STRP subcommittee meeting is the first Monday of the month. Our outreach subcommittee meeting is the third Monday of the month. And our steering committee is on the fourth Monday of the month. And we can thank our co-leads for this really easy way to remember. Because they suggested to align because it was getting very difficult to keep track. And they're all posted online.
Terrible idea.
Any other public comments in the room? All right, any public comments from online? We see a raised hand. Adrian, would you like to unmute and introduce yourself and ask your question or comment?
Sure. Adrian Wren with Valley Vision. Thanks to Laurel for being there in person and enjoying the sandwiches. I just wanted to invite the steering committee to Valley Vision's upcoming Livability Summit. It's happening next week on Wednesday, October 1st from 9 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. It's not in the South Sacramento AB 617 area. It's in Citrus Heights. But we're getting a whole bunch of, at least 300, people from around the region to participate in conversations about the future of the region. And we're doing it in partnership with SACOG and a lot of other partners. So if you're interested in connecting with neighbors, peers, and partners from around the region about, topics related to livability, like housing, air quality, and more, we'd love to have you, and we can give you guys a discount code if you want. So talk to Laurel if you're there in the room, and just reach out. I'll drop my email in the chat to you for good measure. Thanks.
Thanks, Adrian. Could you drop the event information in the chat also? Our note takers? I'm gonna assume that's a yes. Any other public comments online? All right, it looks like we're good. I'm gonna hand off the mic to our co-lead.
All right, everyone. Believe it or not, we are ending early. We started 4 minutes late. We're kind of awesome. So with that being said, what do we want? Stop, clean air. We are joining the meeting at 7:56.
You.
Does somebody want?